Hey Ottawa, Joe Moss and Sylvia Rhodea here with another update from our board meeting this week. So we met at 8 o'clock this week and met to go over our new board rules. And there was a lot of discussion and overall went pretty well.
Yeah, so one of the main points of discussion this week was about committees. And there are two kinds of committees that commissioners serve on in our county. One is standing committees, and those are committees made up of just commissioners, which make decisions about the county and then pass on the final decisions to the board meetings. And then there's another kind of committee, which maybe you would call them community committees, which might be committees formed by the county, but they often include other members of the community, and commissioners serve on quite a number of those. So can you explain how that worked in the past and what changes have happened?
Yeah, there was one change. In the past, for many years, I went back several years just checking how it was done. And the way that I did it as chair was I brought recommendations of these commissions or authorities or these community boards to the board, and then they were voted on to be approved. I mentioned during the meeting that the board ratified them. They were typically, people kind of knew where they needed to be. Some of them are geographic, so a commissioner from one district needs to sit on, Lloyd's Bayou or something like that. And so the main difference is that in the past, the list was always brought out. It was brought publicly to the board. It was out for the public, and then it was voted on. So the change in the new board rules is that the board will no longer vote or see those appointments before they're made, and the chair will make them.
Yes, and it will be interesting to see if the full board or the public is provided with a full list, like we had in the past. In the name of transparency, I'm hoping that we still do.
Yeah, and I hope so too. And I spoke with the chair after the meeting for a little while, and he said he was, trying to finalize the list and kind of working on a way to kind of apportion all of them out, relatively equally to everybody. There's a fairly large number, so the more hands, involved, the easier the work is. And there's also a lot of travel too, because you have to drive to these meetings. Some are in Grand Rapids. A lot of them are in Ottawa County, but it is a lot of work.
Right, right. So we actually had 3 different meetings yesterday. So the first was a full board meeting about the board rules. We had a second committee meeting on policy and planning, which also included some HHS items. And so Commissioner Kyers is going to be the chair of that. And then Commissioner Jim Barry is going to be the vice chair of that. So we were still able to hear some of the HHS updates. So I'm really pleased to see that information is still coming to the community. And then on finance and policy and planning, Commissioner Bonema will be the chair. And for the first time, perhaps ever, Democrat Commissioner Zylstra will be the vice chair.
Yep, that was interesting. I didn't see that move coming. And I can't remember who nominated him, but interesting to see, I think it was a 7-4 vote probably. And if we can go back to the board meeting, one thing that we talked about was the new prayer policy,
Yes.
or at least that's one of, we didn't even really talk about it that much. But we should, so that the public is aware. And it turned out that there was, no changes made during the meeting, and so it was in line with what we had talked about during our 10-hour board meeting. So do you want to review just briefly that, or do you want me to?
I'll touch on it a little bit.
Yeah.
So the changes to the board prayer policy are that now the commissioners, those commissioners who wish to participate in praying for the board meetings, will rotate, and we'll do that, as opposed to having pastors and community members come in and pray.
Yeah, I had a call last night from someone who is in an elected role, and they had questions about our old policy and our new policy. How are they different? Why did they come into being? So a really good conversation. And one thing I explained is, I was one of the people who voted for the board rules overall, even though there was, some element of disagreement during the process. But one thing that I highlighted to the person I was talking to is that, I would much rather have people from the community, pastors, faith leaders, whoever, come into our meetings to offer the prayer before the meeting. And that would be my preference. But at the same time, I'm thankful that the board was, fairly, probably 11 out of 11 in support of maintaining prayer during the meeting, even if we're doing it in a different way.
Right. And, I think again, we can just still encourage people to come in and to feel free to use public comment time, those 3 minutes to pray over our community, including, inviting I would invite our pastors to take advantage of that time still, because we do value their voices and their prayers for our community.
Yeah, it's a way that anyone can come to public comment and use that 3 minutes, to use their voice in the public square. And people have done that for the last couple of years, and I've really enjoyed, seeing what people come up with. And there's always something different.
And something that's interesting, there was a news article that came out in the past week, I think it was MLive, about the prayer policy and some of our meetings, and they said that prayer with pastors started when we came into office. And so just to clarify that issue, that it actually started with the board prior to us, that they began inviting faith leaders in to pray. So
well, the local news doesn't always get it right.
No, they definitely did not.
Hopefully someone reached out and gave them the information.
Yeah. In fact, it's kind of interesting because that was, in fact, part of the reason why Pastor Kramer sued the county, is because he was very accustomed to coming in and praying for the county and getting rapid response. And,
Yeah, he had, before did he sue in 2023?
I think so.
I believe, and he had prayed the prior year, I think.
Yes.
Anyway.
Maybe once or twice.
Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens next. I'm curious to see if he takes any issue with our current or new, prayer policy. And I guess we'll see.
Yes, we will see. Yep. Yeah. So one other thing that has happened in the last week is that Gretchen Cosby, former commissioner and chair of the CMH board, has now very sadly resigned. And so I just appreciate Gretchen Cosby so much. She's so experienced and with such a wealth of knowledge and just fierce advocate for our CMH families. And she's going to be greatly missed. I'm just really saddened by what appeared to have been a very political move to get her off of the CMH board. And, I'm saddened that it ultimately resulted in that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. She does have a level of expertise that is fairly unmatched, and she was serving as the chair of that board. CMH, Community Mental Health, is one of the largest departments in the county. I think the budget's around $70 million,
right,
probably more. And they do a lot of very important work. I know we have some strong advocates on our board, the Board of Commissioners, for community mental health, and seeing that they improve. They're facing some pretty big issues with their budget, with the allocations they get from the state and the federal government and things like that. And it sounds like the new CEO is working very hard to fight for all of the people that they serve, and trying to get the right funding allocations and things like that. So I'm sure Gretchen will be available for questions if we need anything. But I hope that in some way she's able to continue to advocate on behalf of those that needed it the most.
Yes, and CMH is a department where needs continue to grow. Autism rates are rising, and so the pressures on the department over that continue to increase, and mental health has really, those needs have increased greatly as well. So
yeah, the county does face real issues, and one of the questions during the presentation Tuesday Dr. Brashears, he asked something like, are we really impacting lives? Are lives changing? That was a really good question. And, hearing the difficulty that some of these, either caregivers or the individuals themselves who are in the programs, they deal with very difficult situations. So it's a very vulnerable population that, is using those supports. And so with ongoing, focus on that area, I think we'll do well.
Yep. So we will continue to advocate for the needs of the people wherever we see them, including the CMH board.
Mm-hmm. Well, any other updates from this week?
No, I don't think so. Oh, one other update was we just wanted to share that there will now just be the one full board meeting a month. So that's a change.
Yep, that's related to the new board rules where we're going to be meeting as a board once per month instead of twice. The standing committees are reduced from, it was 7, kind of 4 main ones, now down to 2. And, it's kind of been discussed as this is a trial run or a test to see how it goes. A little bit of a change, and so we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Ottawa County, and we'll keep you updated as time goes on.